because that's what you had to do for the case plan. You have to get a job, have a place to live. I got all that. And when I got off the case plan, I said, let's celebrate. So we did a pill, even though that wasn't my drug of choice. I thought if I did something that wasn't my drug of choice, I would be able to maintain it. But no, it eventually led back to my crystal meth. And then in 2016, that lasted up until 2016, I had my apartment. And I got evicted. It's hard to be homeless with a child.
Yeah.
Avery was already at my sister's. I had Kaylee, and my friend said that she would take Kaylee for a couple days till I found a place to live. And of course, being an addict, it doesn't care who you are. It had that much control of me. As much as I wanted to be a mom, I had to have.
And I think that's something that people need to understand is that
so hard. I wanted to be a mom.
there's a lot of complexity. It's not this simple I just want to be on drugs.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of things battling inside.
It's the mental illness. It's the depression. It numbs everything. You don't feel. You know what I mean? It just takes it gives you a false happiness.
Sure. And so when you're going through this, it doesn't mean that you don't want to be there for your kids.
Right,
it doesn't mean you don't want to be a mom. It's just you've got multiple things going on right now.
That's all I wanted to be was a mom, but I had to be high, or I had to go get it.
So from your perspective, the substance really was because you talked about it when you said when you were 11, the substance really was the means to feel different or better, correct?
Mm-hmm. Not
Was
myself.
that the thing you felt like you were chasing your whole time?
Yes, because, my disease is tricky. It'll tell me anything. Good days, bad days, celebrate, depressed. At 14, probably I downspiraled because my mom was in a motorcycle accident. So she lived, but that for me gave my disease another reason to use. So I battle with depression. I know that.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the point where the mental health side, the challenges that we're struggling with mental health wise, are fueling a lot of our desire to self-medicate through a drug.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. 100%.
And then once you're in that, then there's a whole host of other things that come. Homelessness came for you, correct?
Yeah.
What was it like to be homeless?
It was not fun, but just get that substance and I'll be okay, you know?
So you have experience staying in the woods?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit what that's like.
It's not fun, especially if you don't have a tent. Some people are lucky enough to have tents, but they end up stealing your stuff.
So
even
sleeping, what do you do if you don't have a tent and you sleep? What are you doing?
Well, I didn't sleep much. I was on.
So that's another thing that I don't think people understand. You're not going to sleep a lot. And we know that without a lot of sleep, it's all only going to make the mental health crisis even more powerful and so forth.
Yes.
So you're not sleeping a lot, and when you do sleep, it's probably not the best sleep. Correct?
Well,
some of the sleep might be really good because you're worn out.
It was too good, yeah.
Oh,
when I would sleep, I knew I was sleeping because I'd be up for weeks with a couple minutes falling asleep standing up. So, yeah. I would think out loud everything. So people that weren't around me, I would be thinking everything. I would be saying everything that I'm thinking, like giving a play-by-play of exactly what I'm doing, or like I would talk in third party. You know what I mean? Like I would argue with myself about my foot hurting and argue that it is my own foot, you know? So I definitely...
You're going through it, though.
I was going through it, right?
Yeah, and I think with crystal meth in particular, you're dealing with a lot of things that aren't necessarily there as well, too. Like a lot of paranoia, yeah.
But some of the stuff is real, you know, but you can't decipher anymore. At this point, you don't know what's real, what's not real. Because the devil, that opens the door and he's there, you know.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people. I think it's interesting how many people I've had share with me that their perspective of the demonic has really grown because of their drug use. They've like, man, when you're on it, you see and hear things that you never wanted to see and hear. And I don't know if people really understand how bad that can be for people.
Yeah, I think that might be more with the mental illness side too. Like somebody who has schizophrenia or a different mental illness would probably hear more stuff on that.
Sure.
I didn't really experience that, but I know that I opened doors for the devil, and I was a slave to sin, and I knew God was there. I know more now, looking back at the details, I see where he was, and I see that he never left me, because I honestly should have been dead. I should have been trafficked. I should have been...
Yeah, you brought up something there. I think what we're learning about human trafficking even now is that there are many individuals that are in some very compromised situations, and this is where the trafficking even starts.
Basically, a lot. I mean, I heard about people, I didn't know what it was, but they were talking about me, and they were going to sell me to somebody, and I don't know what happened. Probably God intervened somehow. I didn't go. And I'm glad. I'm thankful for that, I've never been...
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing and that's where people, I think, need to understand that, and this is what we were talking about in the last interview, when someone gets behind, if you will, in this, and they get caught up, stuck in it, whatever language you want to put on, it's hard for it to get better, because it's like, once that ball starts rolling downhill, it's really hard to stop it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, especially if you don't have support, if you don't have... And in our addictions, we lose that trust. We lose family. We lose our kids. We lose ourselves. We lose everything. So once you get stuck, for me out there, I never thought I would be here, honestly.
You thought
I thought I was
die,
like, I did die. Like, I overdosed 4 times.
Yeah.
And I know God has a purpose for me. I always believed in God. Like, I would listen to my Christian music, blare it on my Bluetooth, because when I went to jail, I went to Celebrate Recovery in jail.
Yeah.
That's how I learned my Christian library, like all my music. So I would jam it out there. Some people would flee and get away from me, you know what I mean? But I always knew God was there and that he loved me, and that I was going to get to where I was meant to be one day, and when I did, I was going to shine.
Yeah, well, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
So, coming to Jericho, and what did Jericho provide you?
I love Jericho. So, being homeless...
We both have our Jericho shirts on today.
I came from work. So, I came from work at Jericho. Being homeless, the Jericho on County Line Road, the dumpster was my place to go, homeless. I would get my blankets, everything I needed to survive out of Jericho's dumpsters. So when my sister said, I found a place for you to go, when I woke up in the program reading the big sign that was outside of our house, Jericho Road Ministries, I'm like, I wonder if they're connected to the thrift stores. And come to find out, yes, and now I am employed by Jericho, and I'm grateful, so grateful, and that's God. He did all that, and there's a reason why I'm here at Jericho Road Ministries. The rehab that I went to in Las Vegas, they were faith-based, but they did not have the classes, the 22 classes that I went to learn how to love like Jesus, and the people that would help me when I was homeless at the churches, they were the faith with the works. I just had my faith, and they would bless me with clothes and socks, and now I see, now that I'm living, following Jesus, why they did that, and why. I understand it now.
So, another thing I want to pick up on before we close.
Yeah.
Your sister helped you. Is it the same sister who took the babies?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, I think that's an important piece, right? That you did have some kind of advocate.
I did. My aunt, my sister, they had to love me from a distance, though. There was nothing else they could do for me, but tough love. And
so talk real quick before we end, because there's people that are going to watch this that have family that are going through addiction. What does that family member need to do? How do they love someone going through addiction? When they're in the middle of active addiction, and it's got them homeless, it's got them strung out, how do they love that family member?
I felt like my sister didn't love me, but it was unconditionally.
You felt like she didn't?
Well, because I was in my addiction, she wouldn't let me live on the property. She wouldn't let me.
But can you see now what she was doing?
Yes, yeah. She just was tired of seeing me that way, It's hard to trust a drug addict,
Sure.
Are they going to steal from me? Are they going to... but prayer works. My
Advocacy.
My aunt and her church never stopped praying for me.
Yeah.
And I think those were the glimpses of Jesus that I would see in my moments of darkness. Like the hope that I had that I didn't lose was probably their prayers going up and him intervening.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
So you've mentioned that numerous times, and maybe that's the best place to stop here. Faith. Faith seems to be the key component here. Faith in Jesus. That seems like to be the biggest part of what brought you through and where you are now.
That's the one thing I never lost. Hebrews 11:1, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
Wow.
And I almost lost hope, but my kids kept me going, and that's what kept me going, and my faith kept me alive. My faith is what kept me alive. I know it. I overdosed 4 times, and God said, no, you got a purpose, and you're going to bring people out of the darkness.
Yeah. Well, Emily, we thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care. Glad to see you.
Too.
All right. We've had 2 interviews now. I think we're going to have a little bit of a break here for our next interview. So we're thankful that we're enjoying this nice weather. I did get a notification on my phone that we're supposed to get rain at some point. And I think that's an interesting thing for us to think about as we pause here for a moment. You and I, if we have homes, if we have nice places to go to, typically when we're thinking about rain, we're thinking about, is it going to interrupt whatever activity I want to do? But 2 individuals we've talked to today have already talked about how they're looking at the elements and they're thinking, where am I going to sleep and how am I going to keep dry? These are fascinating things that I don't know if we think about all the time. So maybe at least that's one thing we can appreciate about our homes and about our experiences, that we're not dealing with that, and maybe we can think about those who are dealing with that and how we can support and how we can help them. So fascinating points. Hope you're enjoying this so far. I'm going to take this time to take one of our questions and try to answer it the best that I can. I don't know who the question is from, so I won't be able to address the person directly, but the question states this: what is the best way to communicate with the unhoused population? For example, when tents were removed from a certain park, some people knew in advance while others didn't, and they lost personal items. How do we make sure communication is fair and effective? I think that's a really good question. I saw a video one time where they were clearing out an area of homelessness and they were taking bulldozers to it, and it was obviously a very challenging video for me to watch, because on one side I understand, and then on the other side those are people's belongings and that's their life. So how do we communicate? I think one of the best ways that we have found communication, this may sound a little surprising, is actually through social media. A lot of people might not have phone access through data, but a lot of people can find places to get Wi-Fi, and via Wi-Fi they can find out a lot of information. We actually have done communication via through our own website that allows people to even schedule intakes and so forth to come off the street. Now, obviously the communication, the questions asking here is if they know a certain area is going to go through maybe taking down a homeless site. I'm not really sure how to communicate, to be honest, in those, because that's not always information that we're privy to. But I think one thing that we have learned is with the access of internet, there's a great way to communicate. And second, we've also learned that people talk. And so for us, we try to do intentional outreaches to homeless communities to let them know that we got certain things going on and so forth. But those are always tricky too, because you don't know exactly who you'll see and when you'll see them. But we do know that individuals within the homeless community do communicate quite a bit. So those are two of the ways that we do it, is we just go personally to individuals, and also we put out a lot of information via our website. So those are some great ways that we can communicate with those that may not have readily accessible ways. So yeah. All right, I'm going to take one more question before I bring Sean back up. Oops, this one's blowing away. Can somebody grab that one for me? This blowing away? All right, thank you. When Sean comes back up, I'm going to take a 2-minute break myself and let Sean come up and share. So I'm going to answer this one, and then we'll bring Sean up. Okay. What is the difference between addiction and mental illness? The symptoms seem so similar. Once someone becomes an addict, aren't they also mentally ill? And if someone is mentally ill, don't they often turn to substances to cope? It feels like a horrible catch-22. What real help is available? Wow. What a series of questions. And that's exactly what we are dealing with. So let me share with you a little bit of our history, and then I'll try to answer that question the best that I can. We learned a while back. Actually, is Brian here? Brian, come join me for a moment. We're going to bring Brian Wall up as I'm answering this question. I'm going to get his take on something. We've got to get a microphone for you, Brian. So we're going to get a mic. So the question again, and Brian, I'll have you answer some of this in just a moment, but just to bring it to speed. The question says, what's the difference between addiction and mental illness? Are they co-occurring and so forth? Before we get into that question, Brian, introduce yourself. Tell them your role with Jericho, and then we'll get to this question. All right,
sounds good. So my name is Brian Wall. I'm the Executive Ministry Coordinator with Jericho Road Ministries. And one of the things I love being able to do in this role is I'm a chaplain for our staff and our volunteers, providing a lot of spiritual support for our staff. As we know, there's a lot that goes into rescue mission work, and to be able to come alongside and have that prayer support and just have those great conversations to work together with one another has been awesome. Another thing that I've really enjoyed being able to do is a lot of church engagement. So I'm connecting with pastors and ministry leaders throughout the Tri-County area and where our area in Hernando County, and just being able to connect with the local church and see how we can partner and support one another in ministry as we're helping those in the community, and just being able to do ministry together. So it's awesome stuff.
So Brian's been with Jericho for a while, and one of the things that Brian and I have talked about quite a bit, because we've seen this firsthand. The vast majority of individuals coming to Jericho for a long period now have come in relation to a substance abuse issue. In December of 2023, we as a board made the decision that we were going to dedicate all of our bed space to substance abuse issue. And so everybody that's coming to Jericho now, well, since that point, is coming because predominantly they have a substance abuse issue. What we have seen is that oftentimes is a direct correlation, direct link to homelessness. Yeah. But Brian made a really good point to me. Even in the years before that was the thing at Jericho, we predominantly at Jericho, we were all program beds, which tend to be more for individuals going through substance abuse.
Yep, correct. Yep. So Jericho started in 1998. I've actually been with Jericho since 2007, and at that time we had just the 14-bed men's shelter. And of those 14 beds, about 12 of those were actually reserved for our long-term program, and then those additional beds were for what we would call emergency shelter, which is kind of that night by night where people would check in the evening, they'd be provided a meal, a bed, some material needs that they might need, and then they would check out in the morning. We'd be able to provide them with different resources in the community to be able to do that on their time out, and then continue to have conversations about whether the program would be something that they would be interested in. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so the reason I wanted you to share that was because I think even in history we've seen for a while now that substance abuse, mental health tend to be co-occurring, if not the instigator of homelessness.
Yeah. The one that's challenging that you and I have talked about as well is like which one necessarily comes first. Is one the cause of the other per se, but those definitely are two of the leading things that we see with individuals that are really struggling out there with homelessness.
Yeah, so here's the question. We're going to do our best to try to answer it, okay?
Sounds good.
What is the difference between addiction and mental illness? The symptoms seem so similar. When someone becomes an addict, aren't they also mentally ill? And if someone who's mentally ill, don't they often turn to substances to cope? Feels like a horrible catch-22. What real help is available? So before we get to the real help part, let me say this. I do think there are individuals that go through mental health that never have substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
And I think there are people that have substance abuse issues that don't necessarily have a mental health. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah.
But we do see a lot, like if you were to look at one of those circle, I don't know what they call them, but the circle Venn diagram and then the overlap in the middle, it does seem to see, we do see a lot of co-occurring, as we call it, that mental health and substance abuse. I think the biggest difference that if I'm going to separate one or the other is mental health issues or challenges, they seem often to be the primary cause, meaning at least experientially what I have seen is that individuals, even in like the last interview we had with Emily, individuals are going through some type of internal crisis. Maybe it is a mental health crisis, a struggle, whatever verbiage you want to put on it, and they don't feel right, and because of that not feeling right, they look to something to either numb that, take it away, feel better. Would you agree with that, or what would you add to that?
Especially that last part, like whenever you talk a lot about like the substance abuse or substance misuse, the big thing that is usually driving that is, facing unmet trauma that they haven't dealt with, and they're trying to numb the pain or kill the pain, if you will. So those are major things that kind of come into play with that. When you're looking at bringing in mental illness in addition to that, you might be going through something that you're trying to figure out how to make right, and whatever is going to be that ease in the moment sometimes becomes that temptation or that struggle.
And I think what we have seen is that once someone has turned to a substance as their coping mechanism, it may bring a short-term, immediate type of relief, but it can also create a furtherance into whatever their current mental health condition is, or unfortunately, it can create new mental health issues.
Sure, yeah.
So it seems to be really that co-occurring, where I would say that, and so how do you differentiate them? I don't know fully how to answer that other than mental health issues don't necessarily, require a substance, I suppose, to overcome.
Doesn't directly lead to it per se.
Yeah, I mean, it can.
It can for some.
Yeah. And now let's talk about the real help. Yeah, there's a lot of real help available, and I think that's the encouraging thing. Like, that's why we do what we do. I mean, we're on pace to be at 100 beds here really soon, and we're excited to offer those spaces. But it seems to me the real help is this balance between dealing with the actual substance, having the time off of the substance to heal the brain, heal the neural pathways, to get them back into a more normal space, to start dealing with the trauma, to see the counselor. We do a lot of cognitive behavioral through counselors that we interact with, and sometimes medications are necessary, to start taking care of your physical, eating right, sleeping right, getting exercise, all these things. So it's like this, and then we can't deny, and both of the people that sit here already that have went through this, their answer is so much of the spiritual, which we see a lot of as well. I actually just got back from Chicago, where we were talking with a professor there. I believe she was a fellow professor, where they were part of the actually she's going to be one of the speakers in this broadcast.
Okay.
And
Yep.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
But it's talking about how people flourish, and what they're finding from these large studies that they're doing globally is how much faith is important to people flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're seeing the mixture of the faith, the mental health help, the physical help, kind of bringing in almost like a trinity, if you will, to bring in real help. And so there's a lot of real help.
There's been some really incredible research recently that's kind of shown how someone developing a strong spiritual core makes a big difference in issues of, dealing with mental health, such as like working through suicide prevention, working through being able to avoid risk taking, avoid allowing addiction to really become something that sets in. So that grounding of that spiritual core of the individual is a big factor that we're finding more and more is important. That's just why faith-based recovery comes with that holistic approach of also recognizing that there is real mental health issues that need to be addressed, which is why one thing that we've really enjoyed doing, especially in the past 5 years more effectively, I would say, is getting connected with different local agencies that work with mental health to be able to give proper diagnosis, to be able to help inform our staff and help us to understand and identify and recognize the different needs that people are experiencing as well. So that's been something I've been very thankful to see, how we've been able to connect with the local community to be able to partner together to help people where they're at, and be able to recognize, okay, there's a need here for medication, there's a need here for counseling, and then on our end as well to incorporate, just the importance of having Scripture, having the Bible, having faith be a component of your recovery and a component of working through all the different issues, whether it's mental health or just working through a heart issue as well.
Yeah. I think, as you were sharing there, one of the things that made me think of was how important it is for our faith community to understand that mental health issues aren't necessarily faith issues.
Right.
I believe that there are so many of us in the faith community, and I consider myself a part of the mental health community, the substance abuse community, and the faith community. But there are many of us in the faith community that we have a hard time dealing with that mental health side, because there's this conversation, or this lack of conversation, probably a better way of saying it, that well, if Jesus doesn't fix it,
Yeah.
And I think we need to let people know that sometimes the way Jesus fixes things is through, going to seeing a counselor, or dealing with this even from a medical side, because there are a lot of things that are happening in the mental health world that aren't faith.
Yeah.
They're not a lack of faith. They're not, they're not a lack of, hey, I believe in Jesus, so to speak. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I thought someone really gave a good analogy once that really helped me process that thought, because that is a challenge sometimes of is this a faith issue? Certainly God is able to heal this individual of whatever they might be going through, but they gave the analogy of if I went to the hospital and I broke my foot, I would have care for that physical need of my foot, right? So the brain is also a part of the body, and there could be things that are happening within the brain that need some attention, just like my broken foot needs some attention. So being able to think of it in that way, if I was having a problem with another major organ, my brain is an organ, and that helps to be able to look at it more from that perspective, and to have an openness to realizing that there are brain chemicals that might need some help. There are some counseling methods that we need to go through to be able to cope with things differently than maybe going to a substance, which may be the default mechanism before of going through something, and realizing that there's a space for a lot of these behavioral training methods and counseling methods that are very helpful. And when you put those in conjunction with the truth of God's Word, that's what I love seeing, those connections happen. The science that we're discovering in neuroscience and just the medical field, and then being able to see wow, Scripture has spoken so true to this for so long. One recently that I think is amazing is looking at gratitude. You and I have talked about the influence of gratitude and thankfulness, and the Word of God tells us to rejoice always and to be thankful in all circumstances. That's the will of God for us. And then when you're looking at the science behind what gratitude does, it's incredible how it resets your mindset and helps you to really address things. So learning how those two components, and that's just one illustration of many different components we're finding in the mental health field, and tying those and connecting those with the truth of God's Word. So
yeah, and to that last part of this question, is there real help? There is real help. And so one of the things that if you're hearing this and you've got someone in your own sphere of life that's going through this, one area that I would really encourage you to look at is our own network, Citygate. We have over 300 like-minded organizations throughout our country. I think we're actually international now throughout our country that are all working at some level to bring some type of relief in these things. And we're on that end of individuals going through this at that most extreme level. People that are experiencing the homelessness, or maybe at the kind of the end of their rope, so to speak. But maybe that's where you need to start. And then with our partnership that we have so much now locally, I got to do this the other day. I was doing a call with a donor, and she asked me about somebody in her family who wasn't necessarily needing Jericho quite yet, but hey, is there other places? And I was able to share with her that. So, feel free to reach out to us if you have someone in need, or looking for that real help for yourself or somebody else in your world. Anything else you'd like to share before we turn it over to our man Sean here for a moment?
I think a big part of it is wherever you're at, look into the local resources that are available, because we've talked about, even in our area in Hernando County, we're a smaller space in Brooksville, but there are resources that are out there. There are a lot of agencies that are coming together to be able to see what we can do to assist those that are in need, everything from recovery to mental health, and to just a lot of different material resources. So do the research. Sometimes you could find like a local health and human services that might be a help. We have a few great areas like People Helping People in Spring Hill, which is a resource hub for our county, as well as the Health and Human Services right behind us here at the Hernando courthouse, or Brooksville courthouse. So, but yeah, do that research. There's going to be something available, I'm sure, in your area, and just be open to what the Lord leads you, and that'd be great. Yeah. So,
all right, I'm going to bring Sean up here for a moment, and Sean, if you could join us again, while he's here, I'm going to have him just kind of go over our program for a little bit and share a little bit about what we do at Jericho, because I think this is a good opportunity for him to let people know what it's like to be at Jericho and what is offered here, because I do believe it's real help. And I believe this coming graduation, we're going to have 17, 19?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
It's going to be a lot. So if you don't mind, for a few moments, share just about our program and what we do. Okay.
Love it.
All right, great.
All right. Awesome. Well, we're about an hour in, everybody. It's going really well. We're all enjoying it. So to talk about our program a little bit here at Jericho Road Ministries, we offer up to a 2-year program. Like Pastor Andrew had mentioned before, we decided to move to a 2-year program because we know that there is a lot of things that need to be tackled. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get accomplished in that time frame. And so having it be shorter than that, we think would be a disservice to the residents. And so we have a up to 2-year program, 25 months technically. And so our first 5 months of our program, we call our Ezra program. And those first 5 months are going to be your heaviest programmed out. So your most classes, most restrictions, things of that nature. So you won't be working for those first 3 months. You'll be maybe doing some volunteer stuff, but it's mainly going to be classwork, attending Celebrate Recoveries, attending nightly chapels at the center that they stay at, They'll be part of a church rotation on Sunday mornings, and so we have local churches that we that we send our guys and gals out to be a part of. Maybe find a denomination or a local church that speaks to them. So at that point, once they're out of the rotation, they can then choose a local church to start joining, start attending, maybe become a member of, and hopefully end up serving at. Right? That is, we find that service is such a benefit to especially individuals who are coming out of addiction, spending time in service, helping others. We like to look at it as giving that hand up, not a hand out. And so that's beneficial for folks who are early in sobriety, or really for any of us, right? So the first 5 months, like I said, are going to be mostly a lot of classwork, celebrate recovery, chapels, attending churches, maybe doing some volunteer work. When you hit your 90-day mark, so when you hit 3 months into that first 5 months, that is when our residents start looking for work. We are proud to say that we hire on as many of our residents as we possibly can. The vast majority of our residents do end up working with us in some capacity, whether that is in one of our thrift stores, whether that is at a center, working on one of our donation trucks. We even have a kitchen staff as well. And so a lot of our residents end up working with us at Jericho Road. That's for a few different reasons, but mainly because we believe in what we do. We believe in the program that we offer. And so because of that, we will then go and hire those individuals as well. Outside of that, they can start looking for work really anywhere that they choose. And so at their 3-month mark, they can go out and find a job. They'll still be attending the chapels at night. If they're at the center at that time, they'll still be part of the church rotation unless they have found a church that they want to go to. And then our secondary program is 5 months, and then after that, we have a 15-month program through the end. Each one has less restrictions, a little bit more freedom as you move throughout it, and a little bit less programming. So that is what our 2-year program looks like in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll talk about it more throughout the evening. I believe I'm going to bring back up Pastor Andrew. All right.
So did you tell them all about our 2-year program?
I did. I think we covered it pretty extensively.
Yeah? I think it's important, if you didn't share, let people know that right now in our men's center, we're pretty much full, correct?
Yeah, so our men's center stays pretty much full. And so, yes, sir, yep. And we also have 2 additional properties as well that we are full of men right now as well.
The reason I share that is that if you're really needing a place to stay, make sure you put in that application online. Get yourself in that queue so we can work with you as quick as possible, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Best way to do that is to go onto our website, fill out an application. We get notified of those immediately, and we will be contacting as soon as possible.
All right, I've got you can step here with me, I should say.
All right.
I've got another question me and you can try to tackle.
Sure.
If we can. And then I believe after this one, we're going to have another interview coming up here shortly. So we'll do this question and then bring up another interview.
Sure.
All right, so the question states, this was somebody that wrote it in. I don't know if they stopped by or what, so somebody wrote this one in, so that's cool.
Awesome.
Why do addictions not end with continued counseling? So let's ask that one first. Why do addictions not end with continued counseling? So I want to take my first stab, and then I'll give you a moment to think through
Sure.
that. I would say that addictions can end, with counseling. It's not a guarantee that they will or won't, because one of the things that I've had to learn in this work is it's very much a struggle, a mystery, a battle. There's a lot of adjectives I could put on it. We can want something for somebody else so much, but there has to be an element that the individual going through it wants it as well.
Yep.
And so when you're the one doing the counseling, walking through the trauma with them, helping them trying to process, you can give as many tools and advice, be that listening ear, but at the end of the day, the individual still has a decision to make. Now, what we know from a brain perspective is the pathways of an individual's brain actually do get changed through chemicals that they're ingesting.
Yep.
So there is an element where people are, I don't think this is hyperbole, but people are radically changing because of their substance. Would you agree with that?
100%.
And so with that radical change, it's not just this cut and dry, hey, oh, I know this is my problem now, let me fix it. You know, oh, I know that this was traumatic now. I've dealt with certain situations where it's like, and I've heard counselors even say this, just because you know the root of it doesn't change that it's there.
Right.
Just because you know this is a problem doesn't mean that the problem's gone.
Right.
So I think we have to have a lot of grace and understand that this is a process for some people. There are some people, praise the Lord, they can kind of quickly turn around, but that's not everybody's story.
Yep.
And so I think that's important. So how would you answer why addictions don't always end with continued counseling?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is really interesting, right? Because something we see is that the pain of yesterday is not strong enough always to keep us away from going back to it. And so we find that our brains will very quickly start to convince us that it wasn't as bad as we made it out to be. And we can get to a place where we, for whatever reason, can decide that the decision to pick it back up again is better than continuing in what we're currently going through. Whether we physically feel better, mentally feel better, because generally the person's going to at that point. But that pull back is always going to be there unless it's addressed, right? And I think that's that spiritual side of it. We do believe that can be put to death in us. But it's that draw is still going to be there for so many people. And it's that deception that maybe it'll be better this time. Maybe this time will be a little bit different.
I think that's an interesting component, that draw, because I think sometimes people don't understand how powerful that draw is.
Yeah.
It's not that everybody just wants to end up being so given to a substance that they're homeless, or they're so given to a substance they don't have a job. I don't think that's many people's desire when they start.
No, not at all. And it is shocking how strong that desire to go back to something that is so harmful, and you've seen it harm yourself over and over again, can be, right? And that's the addiction, that's the mental health, that's the sin. And it is such a strong cocktail. I've heard you guys, I think you and Brian were talking about it a little bit too, just 3 components of it. And we live in a fallen world. And so that desire to go back to something that has made us homeless before, to go back into the environment again, that's a real thing, and that's what we're dealing with a lot of individuals, is working through to get to a point where that desire, it might not ever go away, but we can give tools, and for a lot of people it does, right? But you're going to meet people too that desire, they'll tell you 10 years in, no, I still think about it.
Yeah.
All right, well, why haven't you picked up in those 10 years then, right? And so that's what we have to start figuring out.
Yeah. And then the second part of this question is, why do so many people have to go through programs more than one time?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I have some answers if you want to take from it.
I would love to hear your answers
all
on
right.
that.
So first, not all programs are the same. I'm not here to sound negative on other programs. That's not my point. But generally speaking, not all programs are the same. Just because somebody calls himself a program doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting the best material or they're getting the most concerned material. So let's start there.
Yep.
So sometimes people go through multiple programs because the program they've went through didn't really address much. Sometimes people go through programs multiple times because that's what they need. I've had to learn that there are even someone going through a great program, and I believe we have a great program.
Amen.
One of the things that we do that's so unique is we allow people time. We're a 2-year plus program, which is pretty unique.
Yep.
which I would imagine, or I would think that gives us an element of, that's really good, in the classes that we offer and the connections that we offer. And we're going to be talking with somebody in just a moment that helps us get connected to so many people in our community, which is going to be good. But even our program, as great as I think it is, there are times that people have to go through it multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is that you have to understand that, just like that first part with the counseling, the question about counseling and why it just doesn't go away. The pull, the draw, the circumstances don't always change. And so what I have learned, and I want to be careful how I say this because I'm not advocating for relapse.
Of course.
But what I have learned is that sometimes for people, the brevity in the relapse showcases the growth. So if someone goes through a program and then they relapse and they only stay relapsed for a week, and then they're like, I got to go back, or I got to find something.
Success.
We're getting somewhere.
Yep, we're moving in the right direction.
And so one of the things that we have to understand is that this isn't just, programs are not just like, hey, we see a bone is broken and we're able to, put a cast around that bone until it heals back.
Right.
We're dealing with, and I hate to use this word, but we're dealing almost with a mysterious thing because everything about mental health is not understood. Everything about substances aren't understood.
Yep.
And so there are a lot of factors that we are still learning and don't understand. So I think all those play into it. What else would you add to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Not every program is the same, and so that's a great place to start. And then also, it comes back to, yes, a relapse can be a part of somebody's recovery story. We find that it is a lot of times, and I think that does go back to that. Maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe we have to prove it to ourselves sometimes. And I think that's where you hear, people talk about maybe that rock bottom language. But here's the thing too, right? How many people have we met who've told us they've hit the rock bottom, but then maybe they find another, right? We don't know how low we can go sometimes. And so
I think that point though is there is an element of no matter what program a person goes through, no matter what program they go through, let's assume that we're talking about good programs right now, because there are a lot of great programs out there.
Amazing, yep.
But let's say there still has to be an element that individual wants it.
Yes.
And if they don't want it, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, because I think that positive program can be a tipping point for them.
Of course.
But it seems that if that desire for them isn't there, chances of long-term success are still lacking.
Yeah, there has to be a point where for yourself there is an overwhelming desire to get better, and that becomes the strongest pull in your life.
Yeah, stronger than all the other pulls.
Stronger than everything else.
So one of the things that makes our program, I think, really good is how we connect to a lot of people, connect to a lot of other organizations. And so on that note, we're going to bring Leslie Gordon up.
Love it.
She is our Director of Reentry, and she deals with a lot of our other agencies. So thank you, Sean. We're going to bring Leslie up. These are great questions that you guys are asking. So excited to bring Leslie up. They're getting her mic'd up now. As we go through this evening, I've already had some people stop in. One guy offered me some golf tips, so that was really good. If you want to stop by, we're here. We're here in the Brooksville Commons. Again, I think that is 15 South Main. We're really close to Mountaineer Coffee in downtown Brooksville. We're really close to United Methodist Church here in downtown Brooksville. You can stop in, say hi. We would love to have you, so stop in. And this is going to be going on. Some people have asked. This is going to be going on for 24 hours. So we've got a lot of different content planned for you. A lot of different interviews that are going to happen, and we're going to have national feeds come through. And I believe we got a national feed not too far from now, 7:30, a little bit further than I thought. So I'm excited for you guys to see those. Those are going to be some wonderful speakers that are going to be talking around the same subjects that we're talking about, but from that national perspective. I believe that we have. I can't remember the exact amount. I think it's 80 plus missions doing this around the country. Over 60. So we got a lot of people around the country doing that. So we're excited to be joining all those. So we've got Leslie here. This is Leslie, and we're glad to have Leslie with us. So Leslie, tell us a little bit about what you do at Jericho.
So I'm the reentry director. So I help a lot of the residents with their recovery helping them with resources outside of the program, help talking to them about what does that long-term recovery process look like, and trying to get them to a point where they're ready to go back out into the world and live the sober life.
So when we talk about that reentry, there's a lot of things that go into that. Before we get into maybe even some of the more complex, let's get to even some of the basics. I remember having a conversation with the gentleman who hadn't had a license since, I think it was 1984, 1988. Then he got one maybe a year or so ago, and the joy he had to have that. Share with people, like, when we talk about license, other things like that, what are some of the things that we start with that are so important that maybe you and I take for granted?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Just those things that we take for granted, you know. It's incredible to be able to provide that opportunity for somebody, or the resources to get them signed up for replacing their driver's license and that kind of thing. And it's
Speaking of driver's license, you can make your car do that, I guess, right? Yeah.
And so it's a huge accomplishment, you know, because it's that step forward. It's something for a lot of people. It's something that they never thought that they would be able to accomplish again sometime, or you know, maybe they had fees that they had to pay off before getting their license back, and
So we help them with
huge
license.
step.
What were some of the other ones that we do?
Getting their Social Security cards. That's huge for employment.
So let's think about that, because we've heard two individuals that have experienced homelessness.
Yeah.
And they're living in the woods, because again, our area, typically homelessness is in the woods. It's not metropolitan. And I've heard this not only in these kind of conversations, I've heard these in a lot, but things get stolen.
Yeah.
They maybe have been kicked out of a place real quick. Maybe they have left on their own really quick. They don't have a Social Security card.
Yeah.
They don't have that identification. What all does that keep people from doing?
So the big one is for their employment.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get a job unless you can prove that you are a legal citizen and that kind of thing. And so that holds them back a lot. And so not being able to have that extra layer of identification is holding them back from those extra steps. For some, that also means that they need to get a reprint of their birth certificate. And so, you know, going through that process to reach out to that state that they were born in to get a reprint of the birth certificate, having those two things in order to get that ID. You know, there's so many things that we don't think about that are so involved in that process of, for lack
And a
of
lot
a
of
better
times
way
you can't get an ID unless you have a residence, correct?
Right.
And
so I help a lot with those residents, writing up a residency letter saying that they've been, they've been in our program for a period of time and that kind of thing. So that.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, even that, like, think about this. I mean, let's just do this train of thought for a moment. You're homeless. You don't have these documents because, let's say you did, but somebody stole your stuff and they sold that with it, right? Now, to get going again, you have to have a proof of residence, but you don't have a proof of residence because how are you going to, you know, indicate you live in the woods?
Right.
So can you imagine what that does to you mentally? And you're just like, I'm stuck. What am I going to do?
Right. And one of our residents was sharing with me that he lost everything in the hurricanes last year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so he had nothing. You know, he lost it all in this storm, and those are important documents that we try to protect and save. But, you know, forces of nature, you can't always control that.
Exactly.
You know, and that threw him into addiction and so, I mean, it's the other big thing that I've learned through this process is that it's so easy to judge on the outside, but then you don't realize how quickly it can happen to any one of us.
Yeah. So one of the things that you do is help people at the beginning stages get this kind of stuff done.
Yeah.
Driver's license, Social Security card, state ID, health coverage, health insurance.
Health insurance.
What's that like for
huge.
Yeah.
Because again, if these people don't have a job, they don't have a residence, they don't have anywhere to live, how are you going to take care of your health needs? You know, and how are you going to get insurance? Oftentimes they're provided through your workplace. And if you don't have a job, then how are you going to have those needs met?
So what we're seeing here is a lot of these barriers, or a lot of these things are becoming barriers.
Absolutely.
And these are things that maybe we're not thinking about on an everyday basis for our own lives, because not meaning this negatively, but we just kind of take that stuff for granted. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating because I again, experience teaches you a lot. And you know, my daughter's getting to the age where she's getting ready to have her permit. She's really excited, and I can remember those days. But you know, it was my parents taking me here to get this, and my parents paying for this.
They're going to have the birth
all the
certificate and the documents to provide for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're, you know, not in that same position, and you don't have it. And yeah, just hearing that guy's story was like, I never thought I'd have a driver's license again. And like, I didn't anticipate that type of, you know, like, oh, we want to get someone off methamphetamine. Great, that's awesome. But the first victory for him was, I have a driver's license again.
Yeah, I feel human again.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of those things that I hear so often is reaching those milestones that we may think are just so minor, but it's huge to them that they haven't had for years.
Yeah. Oh, that phrase, that's a really, that's a really good phrase. I feel human again.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I think whether we want to admit it or not, it's these types when we don't have those things in place, yeah, we feel less than. Wow, okay. Another one that we do, we work a lot with helping people specifically with eyesight stuff, right?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We've got a wonderful partnership with America's Best, and they will provide our residents with a free pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And so it's great to be able to sign them up for those appointments, and then a couple weeks later, they're all walking into the center with a new pair of glasses, feeling like they can actually, again, one more step forward in putting my life back together.
Yeah. Were you with us when Randy went through his, we found out he had cataracts, and then we helped him get the surgery. Yeah, we had a gentleman stay with us. Again, you know, he went down the same path that we talked about here a lot, became homeless, but he had such poor eyesight, like he got to a point he just didn't know what he was going to do. Well, when he came to Jericho, we were helping him with all this stuff, and then we found out about the eye situation, and we helped him down that pathway of, he got the cataracts and all the stuff taken care of with his eyes. And I'll never forget it. He's like, man, I came here, and he was like, not only was I spiritually blind, but I was physically blind, and now I can see.
That's cool.
And like, I'll see him now, I see him on his electric bike throughout the town, and I know like that wasn't possible too long ago because he couldn't see.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But I don't think these are the things that, again, I'm probably stressing that same point, but I don't think these are the things that everyday people just think about, because, you know, we encounter these problems, and we have, you know, they may be challenges for us to fix, but we have means of fixing them, or means of getting them taken care of. We experience a lot of people that don't have those means, and it exacerbates their problem.
Absolutely. You know, and when you don't have these what we would consider to be simple things, it's incredible to think how debilitating it really is when you don't have access to health care, when you don't have proper access to mental health care.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that one in just a moment. But like, if we're dealing with that, I mean, think about the people you've helped, right?
Yeah.
They're going through this stuff, and before they came and met you and met Jericho, right, they were I can imagine there were many individuals dealing with like a hopelessness because they didn't even know where to turn there. Do people communicate that kind of stuff to you?
All the time. So many of them come just, feeling so hopeless. I have nowhere else to go. I have nothing to live for. Like not feeling that purpose. And I think that that's a big thing that, again, that is so easy to take for granted, you know, to feel like you are contributing to something that is valuable, that is worth your time. You know, God designed us for work, to do good work. Whatever that work is, everybody wants to have that purpose and that significance and mean something. And so when you have barriers to that, that really does a lot to your mental self-esteem and your emotional self-esteem, and just having that connection with others as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the picture we're painting, or getting painted for us in all these conversations, is that all this stuff is kind of mixing together. Someone may start with this one issue,
Yeah.
but then that one issue turns into about 15 other issues, and then once you're behind trying to get those issues resolved and you can't get them resolved, only creates more issues.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So your job, you're really trying to help people start finding the outside places to deal with this. And so we talked about the Social Security, we talked about the license, we talked about the health coverage, the eye. But you mentioned earlier, and I said we'd talk about mental health. That's a big one.
Huge.
What are you seeing? How are we connecting people? Give us your perspective there.
I would say that at least half, if not more than half of our residents have some mental health needs, and it's not just, sometimes it coincides with addiction, but it's not always with addiction. There's many people in our society that have mental health needs. And when you are homeless, when you are in addiction, you're not going to be taking care of those kind of things. And so what I try to do is provide those resources so that they can really focus on why they're in our program, and so sometimes that means services with therapy, and sometimes it means medication management and things like that. And so I send a lot of our residents to a local mental health provider. Either Baycare or Learning to Achieve Wellness has been absolutely phenomenal in supporting our residents and getting the help that they need.
So, with that, it seems that one of the things me and Sean were talking about, the 2 years. What have you, people staying with us for 2 years plus to address some of these needs? How long is it taking an individual once they start with a mental health provider? Are we seeing that, these plans are weeks, months? What are we seeing?
It's hard to give a specific number, because it varies from person to person. But we get them seen as soon as possible.
But their care, does it take a while? I mean, not to get them into care, but I'm saying, once they're in care, does it take a while?
It can take a couple months, especially if they're needing some help with medication management. It can take a couple months for that to kind of level out. Mm-hmm. And then once that does, then we really see a huge increase in their focus in the program, their ability to commit to the program, their desire to, because by then a lot of the substance has been filtered through their system, and then there's fewer barriers to achieving that sobriety goal. And again, if we can take that mental health need off of the plate, then that really helps a lot with their buy-in for wanting to sustain their sobriety. So,
of the things that you provide or help people get to, would you say that obviously they're all so important, but where would you rank the mental health one? Is it up there?
Oh, it's very high up on that list for sure. I'll have people that'll come to me after they've been in the program for a while and say, I thought I was okay, but now I'm starting to think that maybe I do need to just sit down with somebody and just talk to somebody and see if there really is something there that I just wasn't dealing with. A lot of times what we've noticed is that people are using the substance to escape the feelings that make them uncomfortable, but the important thing that I try to remind them is that these feelings are good. We're supposed to feel these feelings as human beings, and learning how to navigate them is in a healthy way is the end goal.
Yeah, because one of the things I've learned, working with people for a period of time, like an individual, one of the things I've learned and I've heard is hey, I'm feeling new feelings now, and I'm having to learn how to deal with those sober. Have you heard people say that kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
And when someone says something like that to you, what does that indicate? What does that make you think?
I hear fear.
Okay.
I hear uncertainty. Anxiety, absolutely.
Sure. So when we're hearing that fear, that anxiety, that uncertainty, What's the best way to support someone when they're going through something like that?
Try to get them to verbalize, so what do you need? Do you need me to listen? Because I'm here to listen. I sit down, have a seat, we can talk. If you feel like you need services by a licensed professional, absolutely, let me get you connected with who you need. But I don't want to just guess what your needs are, but I want them to try to verbalize like what are they hoping to gain from that conversation?
Yeah, because one of the mantras, this is not from me. I didn't create this. I've heard this and I believe this, and you may have heard me say this, but recovery is community.
Absolutely.
And I that's what I heard right there. It's like, okay, because what recovery is really about then is like, how do we process life without this substance? Because so long I've been needing this substance to process life, and this substance has created a whole new set of problems for me that I don't want to deal with anymore. And so that's part of our job, right? To figure out how to help them, come around them, to support them as they experience life without that substance. And we do see mental health as a huge part of that.
Well, and the substance also creates a lot of isolation, right?
Yeah.
It causes us to withdraw from others and to lose that connection with others. And so part of the program is to get them connected, not just with resources, but with that community. And sometimes that community is going to AA or NA groups. Sometimes that community is going to a local church and getting involved. What does that community look like? Because that community is what you need to have around you when you do leave the program, because that community is going to be there for you long term.
So you bring up a point that I think is so important. We talk about this a lot because our goal is ultimately for people to leave Jericho, right?
Yes.
Your whole title is what?
Re-entry.
And we believe, and we've had two individuals already state this, how important faith is. We believe that your best community is through the local church.
Absolutely.
And we make that abundantly clear. Now, we serve people that do not feel that way, do not believe that way, and we'll serve you happily. But talk about that a little bit, because I know even you personally, you have a strong connection to a local church.
Yeah.
What does that provide for an individual, that community? How does that help them in their sobriety, that local church?
It's there's so many layers to that. There's that opportunity to serve, right? I tell our residents all the time that we need to be serving. That's why we have the work therapy within our stores, because that gives us an opportunity to be givers instead of takers.
Which is a whole class we go through, right?
Absolutely. And so being able to give and to live in communion with others who are also serving
and contribute,
and to contribute to things is
so you think that
so
local
good.
body really provides that?
Absolutely being able to, and it builds those bonds and those relationships with the people that you are serving alongside, because you're all committed to that one goal, right? And so that's really valuable, but also having people who will come alongside you and pray with you and to come alongside through those struggles and see it through, who understand your past and are willing to support you and pray for you when you are struggling, and to feel like you have that transparency to say, hey, I'm really struggling right now. I need some extra prayer, or I
think it's so important, because like we had a guy from our church the other day. He shared a challenge he was going through, and when he shared it, all the people that were responding were church people.
Yeah.
And we were all giving him practical and tangible advice. And I think that's so important for people to understand, because I think some people, when they hear recovery, when they hear these terms, they can seem so foreign. But no, we all need help. We all need community. And what we're trying to show people that are coming to Jericho is you're no different. You may have a struggle. You may have something that you're dealing with right now, a crisis, and we're not minimizing that at all.
Yeah.
But you're human, and we all need that community, and helping them get reintroduced to community. The best way to do that is through a group of people that's going to help and serve them and be right there with them.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk a couple more things before we close up shop here. What are some of the challenges that you see for individuals getting back into society?
A lot of a big challenge is work, trying to find a good job. Sometimes I was in a workplace where there were a lot of other addicts in this type of industry. And so
we've heard that a lot.
I've had years of experience in this industry, and do I really want to go back to that, knowing that a lot of the other employees are users as well? So we do talk about that a lot, about what other kind of options would be available, or if you feel like that is where your heart is, working in that industry.
Yeah.
So that can be a big one too.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing for people to understand, because if you've got all your experience in one field, then that maybe has been also the place you've used with others.
Yeah.
What do we do? Where am I going to work? Yeah, that's a big one. How do you advise what's your advice to someone in a situation like that? Put you on the spot here. That's a hard question.
You really put me on the spot with that one.
Yeah.
It's hard. Luckily we have great partnerships with a lot of local businesses here in Brooksville. And being part of our local BNI chapter,
Shout out to BNI.
we have a lot of great connections with those business owners, and a lot of them reach out to us directly.
That's
and
true.
they say, hey, if you have somebody who has experience in our industry, please send them our way. We'd be willing to at least sit down and have a conversation with them and see if they're a good fit
that's a really good point, and I'm going to interrupt you there because I just thought of something. We just had a business luncheon not too long ago. You're part of that, right? You were there because you were the one drawing on the chalkboard for us, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I put forth to those business owners there of this is a big, massive barrier for reentry, and I get it if you're a business owner and you got to trust your employees and so forth. So, I think that is something maybe we can help bridge that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think thankfully a lot of those business owners know who we are and what we do and how we try to help support our residents in getting them back on their feet. And so they at least are willing to bring down that barrier of stigma.
Yeah.
That this is somebody who's trying to get back on their feet, and I want to give them a shot and I want to give them a chance.
Yeah.
Regardless of their
I think in a minute I'm going to bring up the guy who runs all our thrift stores. He's still here. I want to talk about that and the job situation.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him. Drew, are you willing to come up? Yeah, good. We're going to talk about that in a moment because I think is Amanda here? Amanda, roughly how many Jericho individuals do we employ right now, residents?
about 40.
What was the number? 34. 34 of our residents are employed with us, and we're going to talk to Drew about that in just a second. Because I think that job part is a huge component.
Absolutely.
But there's one more, and then I'm going to bring it, housing.
Yeah.
How big of a barrier is that for individuals?
That's huge. That is a really big one that I think a lot of us don't really realize, because if they're just starting to get back on their feet, I tell our residents all the time that you need to be ready to have like first month, last month's, and security deposit, and that's not a small feat to have saved up, when you're just getting started out.
Yeah. And housing costs here,
housing costs are
they're really high. And what we have seen is that some of the places that placement places will provide tend to be in communities that are not necessarily most ideal for someone trying to go through it.
Get back out on their feet. In addition
so we got a lot of barriers there, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to those that also come with a record, if they come to us from jail and they have a record, that's not going to look good on the background check.
Yeah.
And so
my dream would be is we could build our own village of tons of homes and say, here you go. That'd be awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leslie.
Yeah,
we appreciate it. You did a great job. the job part. I want to talk to Drew about that for a little bit. So I'm going to bring him up
sounds
here.
good.
Put him on the spot. All right, as we bring Drew up, I got a question. All right,
on the other
very
side.
good question. Do you keep track of graduates or those that have been helped who have come to give back? How many come back to work for Jericho? Okay, great question. We informally, I hate to say this, but informally we keep track of graduates. A goal of ours moving forward is to track that in a much more in-depth way. We do have a lot of informal contact with those who have graduated our program. What Leslie and I talked about so much is our strategy at Jericho is so much about community, and so many individuals do feel a strong sense of community with Jericho. And like we stated just a moment ago, 34 individuals that have went through our program currently work for us. And I think our employee base is in that 75 to 80 range, so it's a significant amount. So one of the things that we are tasked with to try as we move forward is how do we track that better and work with those individuals so we can see those success rates. But yes, we have a lot who come back. We have a lot of conversation. We have a lot of individuals that still work with us. So great questions. All right, now I'm going to bring up. We're going to bring up Drew. And I want to talk to him for a few moments because the job side is so important. And Drew, this is Drew. So say hi to everybody.
Hey.
Drew runs all of our thrift stores. Tell everybody how many thrift stores we have and tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, we currently have 5 thrift stores, 4 in Hernando County and 1 in Pasco County. One we just opened up in April of this year. It's our largest thrift store yet. Pretty exciting. It's doing really good for us. And like Andrew was saying, we hire a lot of these people that are in our programs. We bring them on board to work at our thrift stores, and it's just a really good time teaching these individuals that haven't had much work experience how to work. It's just it's a lot of good things that come from it.
Yeah, I think, one of the conversations I have with our residents who secure employment with us is to understand that this might not be a forever job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like treat it like, in essence, a forever job.
Yeah.
We're in the business of recovery, and so we want to balance those two things out. But I've heard from a lot of residents, that work for us, that they would love to stay with us as long as they possibly can. Have you heard similar things?
Yeah. That we get a lot of residents that come work in our stores, and they want to stay with us for the long run.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the biggest part, it's a great atmosphere. We create a great work environment for these gals and guys to come work in. It's just a really good aura in all of our stores, a good team. We create an excellent team atmosphere. And when they haven't had that much in their life, we treat them like family.
Yeah.
So when they come into our stores and they see that for a lot of times the first time in their life, they want to stick with it.
Yeah. I think, the conversation Leslie and I were having was the barrier for so many individuals getting back into society is one of the barriers is a job.
Yeah.
How do you see us, even if someone doesn't stay with us forever, they're employed with us, let's say a year or something, how do you see us being a part of getting them back into society?
Well, I tell everybody that I interview before we bring them on to any of our stores that, it's a great reference. Working for Jericho Road Ministries, it's a great reference for them. A lot of these men and women have criminal backgrounds. If they could show at any future job, future interview that they worked for a ministry for six months to a year, or even longer in some cases. It's a great stepping stone, and we love being able to use this ministry as a stepping stone for these individuals.
Yeah, I think some people may interpret that phrase stepping stone as less than. You and I don't. We understand that there is a process and a step. So I think that's important. Do you think that their employment, do you think that an individual that comes through our program is employed with us. We employ people we can employ people from the 5 month on. That's kind of our standard. Do you think that's a part of their recovery? Getting that job?
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think a lot of these individuals went without work for such a long period of time. It gives them a purpose that they didn't have for such a long time. And that purpose is tremendous.
Yeah.
It's tremendous going through this recovery stage in their life.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had people come in these stores that haven't worked for 10, 20 years, and it's when they find this, they get this opportunity to, and we give them tasks throughout their day, and they complete these tasks. You see these individuals just light up, and they want to come back and do it the next day.
Yeah.
Some of the best workers I've ever seen they come through our thrift stores. We give them an opportunity, and they just work really hard, and they're very happy, and they're very grateful for what they do, what they're able to give back. In their mind, it's giving back, and we think it's excellent, and it's really fun to watch and fun to see.
Yeah. So. I think when I took the role of CEO, I've been here now 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years now. I don't know if I anticipated or appreciated that as much as I do now. Mm-hmm. Like how much that job part plays a role. And I knew you were here, and Leslie had mentioned that, so I just want to talk to you about it. Because like to me, it's like, I'm not saying it's the most important part, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah.
And I think even if it's not working for Jericho, like we're not here to just promote Jericho.
Yeah.
But if there are those ways that we can help people get back into society by giving them real things.
Yeah.
I think it's really. I think
what I love the most about giving these individuals an opportunity working for our ministry and our thrift stores is they're able to start collecting a paycheck.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people have zero money.
Yeah.
They have no bank account.
And there's a lot of things that maybe they're in debt from.
They have fines. They have many, restitution fees and whatever. The list goes on. So as soon as they're able to start, as they're going through financial classes at our centers, and they're learning how to budget, and they're getting this money in, and it's really fun to see. I mean, we have multiple individuals right now that work in our stores that have purchased cars, more than I've seen. I've been with the ministry for 8 years now, and I've never seen so many residents working in our stores getting their license back, buying vehicles. I mean, they're on the road.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
I had somebody stop me about a year ago. We were over at Joshua's house, and he said, "Hey, Andrew, I want you to look out in this parking lot." I said, "Yeah." He said, "What do you see?" I said, "I see a full parking lot."
Yeah.
He said, "Be proud of that."
Yeah.
I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "These are all the men who have got cars since they've been here." And it hit me. I was like, "Yeah, that's really cool."
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I would say that's one of the biggest obstacles that we see is trying to get their license back. And the county we live in, you have to drive.
Yeah, that's something that Leslie and I didn't get into. We talked about the license, but we are in a situation, in a setting where we don't have, like, it's a hopping, a skipping, a jumping around to get somewhere.
It's hard. It's not easy. We two counties over, Hillsborough County, the bus comes to the bus stop every 10 minutes on the spot.
We don't have that.
This bus stop, it's every hour.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
you miss the bus, you have to wait an hour.
Yeah, you're kind of up the creek a little, right? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I think it's important, and just so everybody understands, the proceeds from our thrift go back to our program. They go back. I mean, yes, we pay people salaries, but the salaries are the people working in our program there.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and I think that's an important component.
Yeah, I do too. It's again, it's very, very rewarding seeing these individuals graduate and continuing to work in our thrift stores and paying off fines and all these issues, taking care of all these issues they had prior to coming into Jericho Road Ministries.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see every single staff member that we hire into each one of our stores that go through this.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Drew, thanks so much. Thank you for the work that you do.
Yep.
We really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to take another question here. I think we got another interview coming up in a few moments. I think so. I think it's what I was told. So, someone take a couple questions here between whatever that time is. If you're joining with us for the first time, I'm Andrew. I am doing 24 hours on this very comfortable bench, and so far it's going amazing. We've had a lot of good conversations, a lot of good questions come in. We have had a lot of good interviews, and we're grateful to do it. So here's another question that probably came from somebody locally. It says, will the shelters be able to assist with overnight lodging when freezing or near freezing temperatures begin this year? Thank you. This is a really important question because of what Jericho is doing now. We currently do not offer overnight stay for individuals that are what we would consider transient. With that, we are no longer our county's shelter for emergency weather. This is a conversation I've had with the county going back over a year ago. They're very aware of that. They've made their own arrangements since then. It's not that we don't want to serve these individuals. It's that we are in a whole different field now with every one of our beds being occupied by individuals going through substance abuse. So to introduce individuals into that space from a cold weather perspective doesn't make sense and really can't happen because A, we don't have the space typically, and B, it's two different styles of work. We wish we could offer transient overnight stay, but currently we do not have the space to do that, so we have had to decline. Now, and I think that's an important thing to understand, because there are a lot of issues that our county faces, and it's not that our county doesn't have great people addressing those issues, but unfortunately, Jericho can't be an answer to every one of these issues. Even in our food distribution, we still provide it, but we've had to scale back on that because of how many individuals we feed through our centers now. So we understand that us engaging fully in the recovery space potentially creates challenges otherwise, but that space is so necessary that we've had to do that. So the quick answer, I should say, to your question is no, we will not be providing space for individuals going through that. But do not hear that answer as we don't care or there are other options. The county provided that last year, and they will provide that this year according to their plans. So hopefully that helps. All right, let me do another question here. Okay, wow, this is a really challenging question because I've been asked this a lot, and I don't know if there is a perfect answer. All right, so I might pull some people up here to try to help me answer this one. Some people that have not been up here yet, so we might do that in just a moment. I see one of my good buddies here, Todd. I might have Todd come up and help me help me answer this question, or I might pull someone else. I'm just randomly pulling people, and apparently he's coming later, so we'll do that later. Okay, anyway, how can we assist people who are homeless without enabling them to remain dependent on others? Okay, so there's a real challenge in this field of where do we draw the line helping individuals without enabling them. And there's a book that came out that was very popular, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago called Toxic Charity. And it really started to explore this concept about when does our desire to help individuals actually start to hurt them. And I understand that the vast majority, probably everybody that wants to help people, they come at this with a true, sincere desire to just help. But sometimes their help actually creates more of a problem. So let me give you an example. we were visiting a homeless encampment in our area about a year ago. Todd was with me. There were some other staff that were with me. And we were there because we wanted to, A, interact with these people, and then B, we wanted to offer them maybe knowledge about what we do. When we get there, I actually knew some of the guys. I knew one of the guys, and I could see his drug paraphernalia there, and I was conversing with him, and almost directly he stated this to me: "Why do I need to leave this area?" He said, "I go here for the food." He was talking about a church. "I go here to this church and they give me clothes, and then I get a government check and I can stay right here." And that was a challenging time, because two of the people that he mentioned, I knew that he got help from, and I know that those organizations and those people mean very well to feed and to clothe. At least I think I knew both of them. But his point was, he had all of these needs taken care of, and he could stay in his addiction because he didn't really have a need for anything else. And so now we're left with this predicament, right? Do we let someone go hungry? Do we let someone go naked because they're in a substance abuse issue? And my answer to that is very, it's very complex, because I can't argue that the scriptures call for us to care for those that are hungry, care for those who are poor, and so forth. That is definitely a call of the scripture. But we also have to understand that the need for help of substance abuse is actually, and hear this with all grace, is actually the greater need at times, because if we can help solve, fix, cure, whatever great word you want to put on there, then these other needs will start to dissipate. However, if we continually only serve those felt needs like food and clothing, sometimes, maybe not always, but sometimes it is enabling. So how do you find the answer for yourself? One, I would highly recommend that any type of ministry you're involved with, either it's food or clothing, is a relational-based ministry. Meaning, yes, sometimes the best way to get someone started to real long-term help is through food, is through shelter, is through clothing. But I would want those ministries to have some kind of plan or some kind of apparatus in place that would have them helping connect that person to a longer-term care. Second, if you feel a conviction to give and to serve, then always give and to serve. I tell this often to people. I'd rather be taken advantage of by an individual than not serve. So by all means serve, and by all means give. But try to find that balance and try to find that place where you can serve and how you can serve through will get that person connected, hopefully, to a more relational and long-term style care. All right? So that's the best way I know how to answer that one. That's a challenging one because there's a lot of well-meaning and well-intentioned and very good people out there doing that. So hopefully that helps. Good question. All right. I got 4 minutes, so I'm going to try to answer one more, and then we'll go from there. All right, here we go. I know God calls me to give financially, but I want my giving to truly help, especially for those who are willing to work. I know He calls me to care, love, and pray for others. Yet I have watched this crisis accelerate for decades without much improvement. Have we unintentionally supported and developed a welfare state? Wow. Big question. And I think that goes to our previous question. And so let me answer that question with why we do what we do at Jericho. We made a decision to go full on into the substance abuse side because we believe that is the best way to help not create a welfare state. I was in a presentation with the DEA, and he was sharing with us the problem that we face in our country, how substantial our problem is. And our substantial problem is drugs. It is the primary causer, I don't know if that's the right phrase, the primary causation of what we're dealing with. So yes, we are called to give, to care, but I've spent now a decade plus in this field, and my work has gravitated now to this mental health, substance abuse, because I can see clearly that if all we're doing is feeding and all we're doing is sheltering, as important, as good as those works are, it's not the deeper work right now. The deeper work is really through this idea of how do we start to facilitate change where the problems are really occurring, and the problems are really occurring in this co-occurrence of mental health and substance abuse. So for those who want to give, sure, yes, Jericho's a great place to give because that's where we're working towards. But what I would really ask you to consider is, for those that are watching, caring about this, how do we prayerfully start to address the real underlying issues other than just the food, the shelter? And I don't want to sound like those are important. I hope I'm not communicating that, because there are so many well-meaning people, and for so many of us, that's how we get started in this field. I remember my first interaction. I was 19 years old, and I wanted to volunteer, and I started volunteering at a mission that is doing the same thing that we're doing tonight, Denver Rescue Mission. I took a bike ride there, and I was there to feed people, and that's how I got started. So the feeding is definitely an element, but we've got to get to this deeper level work, and that is the long-term care to deal with individuals going through substance abuse, mental health. So hopefully that sparks some conversation. Hopefully it sparks some comments on here. I want to be very clear. I am all for people getting fed. I'm all for people getting sheltered. Let's just make sure that we're doing it in a responsible, long-term way. All right, so I think we're getting ready to show a video for just a few moments of a story of an individual that went through our recovery program. So we're excited to share that with you now. As we share that, please stop by. We're here. We've already had visitors stop by. It's been really good. And you can say hi. You can post your questions, do whatever you need to do. We would love to have you come out either here physically or show up digitally and keep sharing your comments and questions with us. All right, we're going to show this video now. I hope you guys enjoy. Take care.
God knows what we need before we need it, and He knew I needed all that to happen to know that I don't want to use anymore. I started using drugs when I was 11 or 12. My mom got into a motorcycle accident when I was 14. At 19, I had gotten in trouble with the law and had to do a goals for the future. And my goal for the future was to be a good mom. That's what my essay was on, was to be a good mom. By this time, I was already in over my head with my addiction. I didn't know that I was an addict. I thought I was just using because it was fun and it was partying and I could quit if I wanted to. And when I got in trouble at 19 with the law, I realized that I couldn't quit. At 22, I found out I was pregnant with Avery, which I was so happy because I always wanted to be a mother. My mom is still alive, but she's brain damaged from the motorcycle accident. And I just wanted to be a mom that I craved for myself. I went to jail pregnant, got out April 20th, and had Avery May 16th. My first time in rehab was in Las Vegas, and I had a glimpse of what real happiness was without drugs. But being an addict, I just went to what I knew because I haven't dealt with my issues with myself, with my mom. So I just resorted back to what I knew, which was drugs. Like, the doors were just locked. I could never get what my heart desired, which was my kids. I could never get to them. I always had to get high first, and then I would get high and numb that pain of not being there, and then I would just continue with that vicious cycle of not being there, feeling guilty, numbing myself. I was always seeking that true happiness when I had that year clean, because I knew what it felt like and I wanted it, and I just always had to have that one last time, and that one last time just never came, or I'll go tomorrow, or I'll do it, and I just never did it because my addiction is tricky and it'll tell me anything. My kids don't need me, they're practically grown, they don't want me, it's been so long, they can do it without you, and in my heart I knew that no, that's not right. I always used to tell myself, I will get to where I'm going. It's just going to take me a little bit longer to get there. And I believed that from the bottom of my heart, that I would get to where God wanted me to be one day. My sister was always wanting me to get help, and I guess they made the call for me. She had found a place, woke up February 16th, 2024, and came to Jericho. First 2 weeks went by really super slow, I'm not gonna lie. I knew that this is where I wanted to be, so I was able to pull through it. Like, I knew for so long that being clean is what I wanted. Once I started the rebuild classes, that's when I started to like really get interested, because I always believed in God, in Jesus. I just didn't know everything that he had done for us. I didn't know how to be a follower. I guess what I learned is I was just a fan, and now I'm a follower. I just want to love like Jesus does. I've been redeemed and renewed and reborn, and that's amazing. Taking the first steps is hard, but once you do it, it's definitely worth it, all of it. I have relationships with both of my kids now. I can be a grandma. I can call them and say, I'm coming. And they know I'm gonna be there, you know? Being in Jericho, learning what Jesus has done, learning to love like Jesus, the doors are unlocking. For the most part, my doors to being a mom and getting to my kids, the desires of my heart, I can be there. I know it took a long time, but moving forward, here I am, and I'm gonna do the best I can.
All right, I believe I'm on now. So, welcome back to Brooksville, everybody. My name's Sean Grant. I'm the program's director. Just checking in with you guys here. So far, we've had some great conversations with some of our residents and some of the employees that work with us here at Jericho. We just had a wonderful video showcasing Emily's story, who, if you guys have been with us from the beginning, Emily was out here speaking with Pastor Andrew as well, and just what an amazing testimony to the power of God and his ability to help us and walk with us through these most challenging situations and life, things that pop up, whether that be addiction, mental health, homelessness, and like we've been talking about, we find that all three really are tied together, and that if you have one of those issues, that it makes it probably easier to have other ones develop as well. And so what I want to talk about a little bit is some of the classes that we do at Jericho. If you or someone you know is interested in a recovery program that is faith-based, part of our first 5-month program are 22 classes that are they look at substance abuse from a biblical lens. And so we look at things like the fall of man, why this world is in a fallen shape. We look at the gospel. A lot of our classes are centered on discussing the gospel, which is that good news, that good message of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice and atonement for us. And so through those classes, we hit on a lot of the books of the Bible. We go through these things, really trying to look at them from a biblical lens. And so why is that helpful? Well, it's helpful because we believe that we cannot do this alone, that true sobriety really only comes from the power, that saving power and that grace of God. Of course, people can get sober in plenty of other environments and plenty of other ways. But what we're talking about is really that true joy and peace that can only be found in relationship with God. I know for myself that when I got sober, I I was sober for a while. I was using other methods, and not that there's anything wrong with them. I believe that God used 12-step circles as a way to save my life, and then be able, from there, to be able to move on with my life from there. But so that's why we focus on the gospel in those 22 classes. We focus on it because we believe that it's only through the power and the grace of God that we can find this long-lasting, true sobriety that comes. It's different, right? And so, so we focus on the gospel. We focus on the fall of man. We focus on, different things like resentment and anger, able to look at them through a biblical lens. The idea of forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, right? Why? Because at the end of our addictions, when people are coming out of addiction, a lot of times they have experienced breaks in their family, relationships have fallen apart, finances have fallen apart, and so there's different areas of their life that need to be readdressed and worked through, right? Something common that we hear in the recovery world is, a lot of people talk about that, they might be 45 physical years old, but whatever age they started using their drug or their drink of choice, that they kind of find themselves stuck there mentally. And so once again, this goes back to the very interesting, mix here of the addiction, of the mental health, because those mental health things. We'll have a resident look at us and say, mentally, I'm operating at the capacity of a 12-year-old, 15-year-old, and so what makes that interesting too is, what are we like at 12 and 15 compared to at 30, right? Things like selfishness, things like fits of rage, anger, all those things we're way more likely to do in our teenage years. And so if you haven't grown past that, if you haven't moved past that mentality, then it can be very difficult to operate in the world today, like with other adults. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring back up Pastor Andrew. He's excited to get back on the bench. Hasn't been long enough. He is ready.
Yeah, I think we got another interview coming in just a moment. So
Beautiful.
As we do that, I think one of the points that you're making there is the difference. People like how they're different at like the growth and the development of different. I think that's an important component. I don't know if you hit on this because I was unable to hear, but if someone's starting a substance at an early age, did you hit on that component?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yep.
Like how much that transforms a life.
Right, and what I was saying too, that's actually really interesting in that, right, is it's not just, so you hear that, right, I'm mentally dealing at the capacity of a 15-year-old. Okay, let's break that down. That means that those things like jealousy, selfishness, anger, like those things that we experience as teenagers that we can't control very well, that means that individual is also struggling to control those as well.
Yeah.
And so that's that grace component that you're going to keep hearing us talk about, right?
Exactly. All right. Let's do one question as we wait for this interview. And so, we got a written-in question. You want to do this one? Okay. Save the bucket ones for later. You want to step here with me?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay. All right. Here's a great question. Do many of the residents end up believing in Jesus? They're talking about residents of our program.
Okay.
Surely some don't. Question mark. Explain how offering love, mercy, and grace of Jesus is a component of recovery at Jericho.
All right. So what was that first part of the question?
Do many of the residents end up believing in Jesus?
I would say yes. I think many of our residents do find that that belief. They come to it in their program, but I believe the second part was surely not everyone does, and of course that's true as well. It is not a requirement for you to be in our faith to receive our services, which I think is an important component as well.
Yeah, I think I made this comment to you one time at a graduation. If it wasn't you, it was someone else. But I definitely remember making this comment. What I found so interesting is how many people have come to faith before they came to Jericho, and then they have sought Jericho because that's a place where they were wanting to grow their faith as they were going through recovery.
Praise God, yeah. We see that a lot, right? We do see a lot of residents come in who are going to profess that belief and that faith, but they want to work on what that looks like and how it plays out in their life, right? And so that is a starting point for a lot of our residents.
You know, and that last part where they said explain how love, mercy, and grace of Jesus is a component of recovery. I think it's important for us to understand, and I hope I can say this in a way that is very understandable by our believing community and by our non-believing community. Because there are a lot of people that are non-believers that love and support Jericho because they love and support recovery.
Yep.
And everybody that knows me and knows Jericho knows that we're faith-based, knows that I'm faith-based, knows that is, it's not just a name, it's who we are. And I think that's important because our love, mercy, grace, that's, as a follower of Christ, we want that to be evident in our life regardless of what we're doing. So, yes, we want to be loving and graceful and merciful to individuals coming in for recovery, but guess what? We want to be that to people who don't want recovery, to anybody, because that's our call as Christians. Now, particularly as someone comes to Jericho, of course we want to showcase that to them because we believe that they are a person made in the image of God and they're worthy of dignity. They're an individual. They're a human being. They're not just a case. They're not just another whatever.
Yeah.
They're a human being. So I hope that the culture of Jericho is bigger than, well, we're just doing this because we have to.
Yeah, I've never sensed that a single day in my 364 days
364
here at Jericho. Everyone who I come in contact with from the employment side, my goodness, they're here because this is what they want to showcase in every area of their life. They're here because God has called them into this very specific work in ministry. But we want to showcase that everywhere we go. We want to be a shining light here in Brooksville, across Florida, right? Not just for recovery, but because the kingdom of God we're called to in that Great Commission, and we want to share it with everybody we come in contact with.
Exactly. Good. Thank you for that question. I think thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here in a little bit.
Can't wait.
All right, but we're now getting ready for our next interview. So as we do that, just want to take a time again to let everybody know that what we're doing, if you're just joining in, we're here sitting on a bench for 24 hours, and we're just having conversations with a lot of different people going through a lot of different experiences, from substance abuse, from homelessness, individuals. Later, we're going to have a lot of individuals that work in this field that are not connected to Jericho. So we're excited to have all those. But right now, we have a new individual, and this is Jason. Jason, nice to have you, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Jason, if you don't mind, just kind of start sharing a little bit about your story and where you came from and so forth.
Okay. I grew up in the church. I remember giving my heart to the Lord when I was about 4.5, knowing at 4.5 I was a desperately wicked sinner and I needed Jesus to save me. There was a Friday night service. I felt the prompting of the Holy Spirit to raise my hand at the altar call, and I resisted it because I was a child. And I said, this is for adults. And then I went home and I cried myself to sleep. And it was a 3-day event at my church, and the next night I went and I sat on the edge of my pew the whole service waiting for that altar call. And when it came, I shot my hand up. My brother was laughing at me because I was a child.
Yeah.
But my mom took it seriously, and she walked me down, and I gave my heart to the Lord. But as I grew older, I was tender, so I got hurt a lot. And I got into public school around 6th grade, and then I really got hurt a lot. I'd been in private school up to that point, and I remember making a decision to callous my heart. The church I had gone to had kind of went off the deep end. A lot of people were hurt by the church. I wasn't, personally, but I remember making a decision that I was going to blame God for my problems. And I knew when I did it, it was the wrong decision, but I did it anyways. And I have suffered because of that decision, because it started a path of me making my own decisions in life, driving the bus. Drug and alcohol use growing up, through my 20s and 30s, and then when I was about 30, I got clean and sober. A couple years later, I got married. Ended up having 5 children.
How old were you when you started substances?
I was about 14.
14.
13, 14.
What was your introduction to them?
It was marijuana, LSD, Jack Daniels, and Marlboros, all within the same month.
Okay. 14. How? Like, who introduced you?
We had moved from Washington State down to California, where I was born, in San Jose, and I became a skater punk. This was 1989, well, 88 when we moved down there, and I started going to a high school there and made friends with another outcast who happened to be a skater kid. He gave me a skateboard, and I just started hanging out with him. Didn't have a dad in my life, so it was just a single mom. So I was always a kind of a chameleon. Where do I fit in? Who am I? I don't know, but you're cool. I'll act like you. Mm-hmm. So, and that was on and off. I did a lot of hallucinogenic drugs, a lot of marijuana, a lot of drinking.
So 14.
From 14 on, yeah.
When did you get married?
In 2004, December 27th. And things were good for a long time. I had been living.
Were you
I was saved.
sober then?
Yeah, I was sober and clean and walking with the Lord for the beginning part of my 30s. And I began to, I don't know, I just stopped reading the Bible every day. I started to nitpick and find fault with churches. So we couldn't go there because of this reason, couldn't go there because of this reason. Some of them were valid. I had special needs kids. Some churches couldn't handle that. Some were just, I don't want to, I don't want to submit. In retrospect, it was just me furthering myself away from God, becoming my own boss again. Then I smoked some weed again. And then I fell off a roof, broke some bones in my back, got put on pain medication, and that about destroyed. I was on pain pills and Adderall. And that's when my wife and I first separated. I went into treatment to go try and get off of that. Got myself out of the program early because I created a situation in my head where she wanted me to or needed me to or whatever the reason. Then I had to get off of those pills myself, and so I started taking a substance called Kratom.
Yeah.
Which is like opiate light.
Yeah.
And I believed in my head that because it was a natural substance, it was going to be fine. And I was on that for 6 years until just last April. But my addiction to that increased to the point where after we'd moved out to Florida here,
We meaning?
my wife, myself, and my 5 daughters.
Okay.
We were out here for a couple years. I had a stroke, but I still kept taking Kratom and smoking cigarettes. And it got to the point where my whole paycheck was either buying Kratom or cigarettes, and then some gas money or Monsters or whatever. But I wasn't putting anything into the family. And my wife had enough and filed for divorce. While I was up visiting my mom in Seattle, I came back to no home. I had money, but I couldn't find a place to rent, so I ended up in a motel. And then I just started drinking. Just started drinking vodka. and it took me about 6 days to find myself unresponsive. Well, the paramedics found me unresponsive.
Were you suicidal at that point?
I don't know if I was suicidal. I was in despair, and I was trying to numb my despair at losing my wife, because growing up without a father, I had always said, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm always going to be there for my kids. The problem is when you make vows, sometimes well-meaning vows will come to bite you. And I'm trying to fulfill something that is out of my control. And so she filed for divorce. I was drinking. They found me unresponsive. I ended up being Baker acted. At some point, when they found me, my blood alcohol was 4.6. Wow. And the legal limit is 0.08. This was 4.6. By the time I got to the hospital, it was 3.9. And I think somewhere in there, they asked me if I was trying to kill myself. And my smart aleck younger brother mouth made a comment, something like, kind of looks like it, or something
So
smart
they
aleck, and
corrected
they
you.
said
Yeah.
he, sent me to the psych ward. Well, when I got there, my caseworker there was like, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here." And by that time, my mom had found out about Jericho Road and got a hold of Sean Mangan and began to storm the gates for a bed for me. And a bed opened up within about 3 days. And I got to Jericho Road on a Friday night exactly 5 months ago. Today is my first day in Nehemiah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Nehemiah is our program for those that are with us 5 months.
So yes, I graduated the first 5 months Ezra program, and then and I God had been on my heart for the last 2 years to lay down the cigarettes, lay down the kratom, get my butt back in church, start listening to him, and I just was in control. I can handle this until I couldn't.
So, how much, how much do you think not having a dad in the picture played a role in, that 14-year-old guy who said, you know what, I'm going to go this route? How much do you think that was there?
I think it was probably a good portion of it. And not just how it affected me, but how it affected my mother.
Sure.
Because she began to rely on my brother and I to fulfill roles that a husband would in her life. So it created a codependency there, which I was always trying to escape, but because I was so protected, she was so afraid of the world, raising 2 sons, she kept us shielded from a lot of stuff. So the real world was a scary place. So I'm rejecting her and afraid to step out, failure to launch, big time. And I was always looking for a strong male figure or somebody that I could connect to that would show me, is this who I am? Or is that who I like that about you? And I'll just have to overlook. So I would do something for a while.
Yeah. Because one of the things that, I have seen, and just my experience being in this field now, is that there is a commonality. That's not always the case, but there is a commonality when there's a breakdown in that family.
Yeah.
It seems to make people more susceptible to mental health challenges, to substance abuse, and usually the co-occurrence. And I'm not assuming that's your story, but hearing that, and then hearing the correlation, it's kind of where
I also think it's it's contributed to my struggle with surrendering to God, because I don't have a concept of an earthly dad. So it's taken me a long time. I'm 51 years old now. And it's taken me a long time, and I'm still not fully there, but I'm starting to realize what a father is.
Okay.
Because I didn't have that example. I had father figures, but I didn't have the daily, strong, gentle justice, mercy of a father.
So, for you, when you started down the path of substances, or even further in your life when you were continuing down that path, do you feel like they were some form of medication for what you were going through?
It's not all the time, because sometimes I'm justifying or I've got it under control, but there are moments of clarity, there are moments of conviction, if you will, where I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am drinking poison to try and cure an illness, consuming something that's going to kill me in order to save me from something that's killing me.
That's a very articulate way of saying it. So, in essence, like when we got to that last bout of vodka, right? 4.6, correct? I mean, outsider looking in, if someone is consuming at that level, I think the natural assumption or natural conclusion an outsider would say is suicide.
Yeah.
But in your mind, it's not necessarily suicide. It was more, I'm taking that poison to fix this thing inside of me.
The inner pain, the emotional pain of loss and the loss of control
Sure.
is so much scarier than any physical pain, because I've always been a adrenaline junkie. I've always pushed the envelope with LSD and all these things. I was always taking more and more and doing more and more crazy things and surviving, and sometimes thriving in it. So, but despair and heartache and rejection and loss, those things that I experienced as a child and didn't know how to process them, so I just hung on to them my whole life. Those things, when it happened again, they're magnified
Sure.
because of what I've been carrying around.
Yeah, because unaddressed trauma, unaddressed stuff is going to come up. It's not gone.
Yeah, and you stop maturing when those things happen if
Yeah.
you don't deal with it.
Yeah, it's a common. Unfortunately, it's a common phenomenon, right? With that there's a term, I can't think of it right now, but yes, that stopping point in your maturation. When you look back hindsight with that marriage, because there's got to be good days there, right? There was great days.
Yeah.
When you look back on that marriage, like, was it providing you some of that relief, far as like, man, I'm getting.
This is one of the things that God, for most of my marriage, has been telling me is, Jason, take her off of the altar of your life. Because I've made her an idol. And I would do things, the way I would lead the family is she going to receive this well? Is she going to submit to this? Is she going to think this is a good idea? Am I going to make her happy by doing this? So I wasn't leading the family, and I wasn't responding to God, and I wasn't a husband. I was.
How did she view you?
Well, I mean, to the
How long
point-
did she stay with you?
20 years.
So there's some part of her that viewed you that way.
Yeah. There's she still probably has hope that I will become who I advertised
Okay.
when we courted. But she's not, she's like this. She's the type of person, by the time she talks about something, she's been thinking about it for a long time.
Understand. Yeah.
So
when you got to that point when you're in that hotel, I can imagine it's a pretty lonely moment.
yeah. The question, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
becomes so loud in your head that you just, that's probably why I drank more and more, is because the closer to sobriety I got, or if the threat of sobriety, the louder that voice became. And so I didn't have a plan.
And see, that's where I look at that and I say, clearly, the substance in that moment is a form of self-medication.
Yeah.
It's what it is, right? I mean,
in a sick way.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a positive way.
No, yeah.
I'm not saying it's a healthy way. What I'm saying is, for many individuals, for many people to understand what we're experiencing, because like I get a lot of people, talk to me about substance abuse, and I don't think people fully understand that so many of the individuals that are going through such serious substance abuse issues are also struggling with something in life, and their response to that struggle in life is what's creating, or maybe even not creating, but is really ramping up the substance abuse. And like, you're a perfect picture of that. Like, you're going through life, you start with, hey, I don't have a dad, don't feel secure, up and down, don't know where to go. I turn to this community, I turn to this substance, I'm married, it's not going, whatever, I'm turning. Like, there's this continual turning to this. So the question now becomes, at your age, like, have you reached a point where, A, you can see that, and then B, you can see, because here's the reality that you and I both know, unless you're someone who's just, radically transformed, which can happen, but it's not the norm. When that next trial comes, can you see that the substance isn't it? It's not going to get you there.
Well, this is why when I started the program, one of the questions that kept repeating in my head and out loud to different staff members was, what is going to be different this time? And how do I stay in this spot of humility and desperation for truth?
Okay.
Because I know the answer. I've always known the answer in my head. But surrendering and letting it become a part of my life and who I am has always been the disconnect. It is always, I don't see that identity, and I don't give it the faith that identity is something trustworthy. So I have to control it somehow. So I have continually tried to ask myself, okay, when I first got to the program, I felt the presence of God, and I sought Him, but I also started practicing things in this program. Like I began to get up early in the morning, because I remembered that Jesus, when He was on this planet, He would get up early in the morning and commune with His Father. So I'm like, okay, I've always been a night person. All right, well, let's change that.
Okay, that's a great point. I want us to sit there for just a second.
Okay.
Because I'm not advocating, I want to be very clear. Everything I'm getting ready to say here, I'm not advocating everybody has to get up early. Okay?
Right.
I want to be very clear. But what I am going to advocate for is, like, you're seeing, okay, I feel like we're almost having our own therapy session right now. This is really fun for me. Okay, so you're seeing that from the spiritual lens, right? You're seeing it from the spiritual lens. And that's a good lens to see it from. Like, I want to commune with my Father. I can also see that from the spiritual lens, but I can also see you made a clear habitual transformation, brain change, which is a powerful mental step in order to initiate recovery. A lot of verbiage there. But to create habits, okay?
Yeah.
There's a lot of argument how long they take, but one I've heard 30 days. I think it's too soon. I've heard another one says 48 days.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a little bit more accurate.
I think it depends on the habit.
Sure. Well, let's think about that for a moment. If you're getting up earlier, what does that also mean you're doing?
Going to bed earlier.
And you're getting more what?
Sleep. Good sleep.
Okay, well, we're learning that sleep is so necessary for mental like mental change.
Yeah.
I can only imagine when you're in the throes of a substance, you're probably not sleeping the best.
No.
If you're staying up late and then you got to get up to go to work or do something, you're probably getting what?
Yeah, minimal.
So you're seeing it, and rightfully so, you're seeing it as, hey man, I've got this new spiritual discipline to get up early and pray, read my Bible. Awesome. All for it. I see it that, but I also see there's a tangible side effect of what? I'm getting sleep and I'm getting into a routine.
And it wasn't just that. I said, my decision maker is fired.
Fired?
Fired. The thing in my head that makes decisions has gotten me back here. So I need to, well, maybe not fired, but suspended. Without pay.
Okay.
So I gathered, I had...
Hopefully not fired, because you got to make some decisions, right?
Yeah, but
you got to change
yeah, maybe replace it with new paradigms, right?
Mm-hmm.
New thought processes, reactions that are automatic. I need to get rid of those, because those have gotten me here. So I have a resource of staff members here that now I say, okay, before I make a big decision, I'm going to run and I'm going to say, hey, what just sounding board. An old pastor of mine said, what makes sense in a monologue is revealed for insanity in a dialogue.
Amen. Woo, that's a good phrase.
It is. And
Well,
shout out to Dave Olson.
We talk about this often. Recovery is community, right? So let's back up in your life. You don't have your mom. I'm not here to knock your mom.
Yeah.
Praise God, your mom was there and did what she did, right?
Yeah, my dad was in prison, so
So there's probably many moments in your life where you were stuck having a monologue when you should have had a dialogue.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we say often recovery is community. And what we mean by that is we all need community. We all need individuals because, brother, you're no different than me. I can, my goodness, left to my own devices, right?
Right. I can talk myself into anything.
Anything, right? That's good. That's not good, right? Okay. So we need that community in order to what? Create a better trend of decisions.
Especially when we're toxic still.
Sure.
Our bodies, my body,
Especially
I'll
from
keep it a me statement. My body, after coming through that mess of alcohol, is still toxic.
Yeah.
My thought process are still toxic. 6 years of addiction.
Yeah.
So,
even at 5 months, as great as that is, there may still need time for your brain to.
Well, now, especially now, because, like I was saying, I've been working on my graduation speech, and this is literally the very beginning. I have ground under my feet, but it stops at the toes. That's the ground I have right now, because now I'm in a program where I have some structure around me. But soon that Jello mode is going to lift. Have I solidified yet? I'm going to go out into the real world now, a little bit more than I have been. Is my habits and is my structure of wisdom that I've put around me, have I done that sufficiently? And am I dead in my desire to drive my own car? Did I finally get it? Did I finally get it?
I think this is where, I think you and I can transform the conversation just a little bit then. I hope I'm able to show you attend my church. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
My wife actually commented about you Sunday. I was at a baseball tournament. I think she was talking about you and saying how she's like, he's really cool because you're part of our Sunday school class.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that we believe highly in this community, like we talked about, right? But the idea for someone is someone can't stay at a place like Jericho or Program forever. We understand that. That's just not practical. Because
it's not good for them either.
Sure, it's not good. That's a great statement. But just even if it was good for them, it's not practical because we only have so many spaces. There's so many people, right? But the goal isn't to just be excommunicated. The goal is what?
It's to be part of the family.
You got to have community. You got to have that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so that local church is what, for millennia, that's what we've believed in, and I think we got to really rediscover that.
I came here wanting to ask a different question.
Ask it.
And it kind of might lead into that a little bit, but we're in some times right now. In my belief, the way I see things, I hope this country is on the verge of a revival. The problem I see with that is revival comes through persecution or a massive realization of how lost we are. And I don't know if the church is ready for either of those positions.
You know, I don't know if I'm the one to answer those.
I don't know if
I will say this. I have been blessed to be a part of a global. I've spent time abroad. I've actually lived abroad. Been a part of the church as a whole for a long time in a lot of different areas. I've pastored. Even in the role now, I have so many wonderful connections with churches, not only here locally but around the country. And so many of the people I know now, I've just had a lifetime of this. So I think I have a pretty good view. Point being, what I can see is, regardless of the persecution element or the realization element, what I can see is there does seem to be some type of awakening happening.
Gen Z is now the most churched generation.
Well, what I'm finding, I'll give you an example I go to Chicago not too long ago for a big gathering of a bunch of people, right? And they're believers. I want to be very clear with that. They were believers. And but still, we invited some speakers in that I believe are also believers, but they're a part of some institutions that are much larger and actually, I've been in 2 of these conversations not too long from now. Anyway, I've been in a few. But I'm a part of some of these conversations with some larger organizations with, that are very secular in nature. But what's so fascinating, even in these secular environments, is there are some very educated, learned people that are starting to learn and starting to communicate. Maybe not in the terms you and I would, that, hey, Christ is Savior.
Right.
But they're starting to communicate, wait a second.
There's a drawing.
There's something going on. Because I think what we're finding is people are really hungry and they're desperate.
Yeah.
People are really desperate right now. I mean, the crisis that we're facing in our country with substance abuse alone. I share this often, but the that average age expectancy for males in the United States is going down, and that's because of ODs.
Yeah.
If we're having that many people OD and we're having that crisis of mental health, there are people asking us a lot of questions. Right.
And really, if you think about it, the substance abuse, and it goes for my life too, is because people are looking for something supernatural.
I think that's an interesting point, because I've heard a lot of similarity to that. I never expected that, but I've also heard it from the negative, meaning like, man, I got into this and I've experienced the demonic.
I have too.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
But it's just our desire to be out of the norm. This is boring, or I'm in pain, emotional. I need something outside of this, that self-medication. I need to be lifted to something else, but I don't know God. And I don't.
So I'm going somewhere.
But this will
especially like if you get into the psychedelics,
mind altering.
like you got into the psychedelics, right?
Yeah.
I don't even want to go there with some of the stuff I've heard there, right? But that's the point. And so my thought is, I keep going back to this, and we got to wrap up here soon. So man, hopefully we could talk more later. But one of the things that it's just so clearly evident. People are medicating. That's what they're primarily doing. And now that we introduce that toxic, it's this poison, man, we're going on a ride we didn't expect. But isn't God good that even in that negative, horrible hell ride, I think that's a fair way of saying it, that, man, he shows up and starts doing things that nobody could expect or understand.
Well, yeah, but he started
way before that. I know, that's my whole point.
All of a sudden, he just met me where I was.
But that's the point. Like,
exactly.
He's there. Like, there's something going on that's a lot bigger than what you and I can see.
That's what it says. He won't give you more than you can bear, but in that time, he'll give you a way out. That you
the
can
scripture
bear
really
up
states what? He won't take you past the point. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, man.
Absolutely.
This was really great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your
This was
time.
good. Yeah, this was
Appreciate
good.
it.
So, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Yeah, that was good. All right. While we're getting our next interview lined up, let me take a question. Oh, we're going to pause. Never mind. We're going to do another interview in a moment, but we're going to take a break here real quick. All right, I'm being told we need to exit out of this live stream and then re-enter into the new live stream that will be on our page, correct? Facebook or YouTube. So hopefully we'll see you there. So go ahead and exit out.